And I'm Joni Rocco. I own a wood flooring business in town. And you just locked me out.
Oh,
dang.
See if you knew my cell phone number by heart.
So one of the benefits about having a mentor is that they can help you with your business. So that's something to consider. And actually, Amy submitted her bio to us, but then one of her business mentors tweaked it a little bit, and it's really great. So I'm going to read that one instead off her iPad. Amy Westbrook is passion, purpose, and excellence. After 18 years working in neurology and amassing the highest level of achievement in the corporate realms, Amy discovered her true passion and unique gifts for empowering others to unlock their potentials and take the steps necessary to live them. She is now a certified success and leadership coach and the founder of Amavida Coaching, where she guides high-caliber professionals to greater levels of personal success. Her expertise is the newest forms of neuroscience, stress management, and productivity are the critical piece that every individual most needs to revitalize their habits and create desired results. And then she has a quote from a client, Amy is the expert every professional should invest in working with today. Never in my more than 45 years have I felt more alive, and never could I have dreamed I was this capable of achieving this level of success. She is the perfect amount of compassion and kick-ass. Amy lives in Parker, Colorado with her husband, 7-year-old son, and fur babies. She's an avid reader, which I know, book club, promo, and globe traveler, and will dive in for every creative endeavor she can get her hands on. Please welcome Amy.
Okay, you guys are going to help me focus because Thomas has told me that I have to stand within a certain area, and I'm like, oh God, because I'm a pacer. So this is a new workshop for me, and I'm very excited to share it with you. I have had the fortunate opportunity to have, almost 20 years of training in the corporate arena, and I got to heading it up, probably close to $200,000 in training, and that's sitting up in here. And obviously I've had a lot of goal training, but there are always kind of different pieces of the puzzle. It all didn't work for me. And Mary Jo and I were just talking about that. How, you read one book and it says to do that, and then you read another book and it tells you to do this, and you're like, well, gosh, what am I supposed to do? And then so you kind of end up doing nothing. Well, when I started coaching and I started training around the coaching process, the psychology of that became very interesting to me. And I was able to finally put together the pieces of the puzzle. And so that's what I want to share with you today, is how I see the pieces of the puzzle. And so I'm going to share that. We're going to talk about how to write the goals. And I'm just going to give you a spoiler alert. Do what works for you. Right? Do what works for you. Something that you'll follow through on. Did everybody have a chance to read this? Yeah. I love this quote. And it's so true. Because if you really know how to set goals and go after what you want and you're methodical about it, things are going to happen for you, despite your best efforts. There we go. Sorry. I moved my slides around this morning and it threw me there for a second. Like I say, this is a new workshop. And I put together this workshop to put these pieces of the puzzle together in a different way. So your participation is going to be very important for me today, to know what's working, what you think, what sounds good, what doesn't make sense. So I'm going to ask for your participation. And if you don't have a piece of paper out yet, if you would get one or borrow a piece of paper from somebody, we're going to work through some examples of your own. So I'm going to ask you to participate with you, if that makes sense. If you want to throw up a hand and share with the group, that's great, because we can all learn from each other. The one thing that I was like, what do I want to teach today? And I was thinking, there's not a lot to teach, really, when it comes to goal setting. Really, you just need to be reminded, right, of some of those things. And then maybe, in addition to the reminder, seeing how the pieces of the puzzle fit together, at least in my mind. I hope it'll make sense for some of you. So this is what the chamber was kind enough to put out to tease you to get here today. And this is what we really want the takeaways from today's talk to be. Now, can you turn these into questions for yourself. And this question would be, at what point in a goal do you start to run out of gas? Are you like kind of 70% along the way and you run out? Are you one of those people that like you make it 95% of the way and then you're just kind of done? You just can't seem to pull the trigger and get that last 5%. You always hear about those people that didn't quite finish their dissertation. They just didn't turn it in. You're like, really? Wow. Your work-life balance, if you had to rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 10, where are you? Do you know what your ROI is on your time and resources? I got a great question from actually a mentor that Tiffany and I share. What is your time worth per hour? Ooh, really? I have to figure that out. That's something great to look at because it gives you something to measure and track as you start to get really busy, maybe in a new job. You want to break through the psychological barriers. This is where I'd like you to take that piece of paper and write a goal that you've had in the back of your mind, or maybe you've written it down somewhere, or you've talked to somebody about it. You've sort of started the goal, but for whatever reason, you haven't moved forward with it, or you haven't been able to finish it. What is that goal? And could you come up with one reason why it just hasn't happened yet? Because we're going to look at that today. We want to have clay that we can actually mold and work with today because we learn better that way. And then enhance the quality and speed of your decision making. The other thing, put a little asterisk next to your goal that I hope you walk away with, maybe not right now, but if you'll do some work after this workshop, creating a no list. What can I start saying no to so I can focus my resources and my time more efficiently? So let's get started. There it is. In my mind, this is how goals work. And I think everybody in here that I talked with has set some kind of a goal or another. When you have 2 and 3 and 4 businesses, you have to have a lot of goals, right? And what we focus on most often, even if people don't write goals, you know what you know, which is what you want. I want to make $100,000. I want to be 110 pounds. That's not going to happen, but I'm just saying. 110 pounds, whatever that is. You know what you want. And so that's the what that you're striving for. And this, obviously, this is something you're going to measure. And I'm going to look back, just so you guys know, I'm going to look back at my notes just a little bit because I don't want to leave too much out because this is a new workshop for me. So think of this as like the money, the time, the weight, the things you're going to measure. Execution, it's the how. So what are you going to do? Think of it as your strategy and your tactics. But I also want you to think of this as, what is my impact in the world? What solutions am I providing for my customer? Because the bigger this is and the better this is, it's going to impact your results. If you want to have big money, you got to have big solutions. So that's one thing to think about with the execution. Now this third piece of the puzzle here, I'm calling it integrity. And integrity is interesting. And I wanted to call it integrity because every book that, if you've picked up a goal setting book, it says you need to know your why. What's your why? And I do think you need to know your why. But let's call it, I want to call it something else because with integrity, you are now making a commitment to that why. There's a difference between knowing a why and having a commitment to your why. So I want to draw out that distinction. And with your why, I want you to think of it too, and you probably already do if it really is your why. This isn't the, oh God, that would be super. That'd be great. I should do that. This is the must that has to happen in your life. And John gave me a good example of like putting his family first. And that's his number one priority. And that guides him in his decision making. You know, if I said, you know what, you can't have that goal, you can't do that, it'd probably make him sick to his stomach. That's a good indicator that that's a goal you really want. And so that's what we need to be listening to. Now, I call this the brief model Because sandwiched, I have the R, the I, the E, but sandwiched in all of this is the B and the F. Because if you don't believe that you deserve those results, if you don't believe that you have the skill set and the confidence to execute those results, and if you don't really believe in the why, because it may not be your why. We all, some of us work with our spouses, and sometimes they have some goals and some things that they want us to do. And you're like, yeah, that's not really one of my whys. I really didn't want to be one of my goals. You know, Joni's shaking her head. I mean, it's hard when other people want you to have the same goals, but it's just not the case. So let's see here. This is when the belief lines up, and you'll know when it's not lining up, okay? Because this is the part where you look at somebody else's success, maybe you're a little bit jealous, you know? Look at that car, who does he think he is, you know? It's those feelings that come up. Or this might be the place where you start to feel stuck. Or this is the place where, gosh, you could be resentful even. I mean, there's a lot of emotions that come up in this belief section. And that's why I wanted you to write down that goal, because we're going to talk about that goal and listen to that. Like if I say some things and we're talking about it, and your thought is, she's smoking crack, that's never going to happen. Well, what's your belief about that? Why do you think that? Because this other stuff, I mean, as a coach, I can see people trying to chug along as hard and as best as they can with, result. They know what they want and they're kind of executing on it. But at the end of the day, if you don't have the belief, it's not going to happen. And my best example is that person that wins the lottery, right? For whatever reason, they have a money mindset that they're not going to be rich. And so what do? They have $10 million and they lose it within years. Just years, right? We'd all like to think we'd hang on to that 10 million, right? So what are your thoughts around this model and taking it beyond just results and execution and what I'll call like the integrity? Mary Jo, what do you think? Because, I mean, we don't really talk about belief, and the books don't bookend this middle part with belief.
It makes sense. I mean, it's like putting morals and values behind what you're trying to achieve, which obviously is going to be a stronger direction to drive you.
Right.
You're putting more backing into it, more reasons for why you can't fail at it. So,
thank you. Because she's got to get her team where they don't fail.
right.
And this is a great coaching tool. I mean, if you've got a team member, or yourself, but a team member who they seem to be struggling, go to this and say, well, what are their hows? How are they executing? Well, that looks pretty good. Well, have they really uncovered their why? Maybe they really haven't. Maybe they thought they had, but they haven't. So maybe this is the missing link. Maybe they're measuring the wrong thing, but a lot of times they may not have the belief that they can achieve that goal. So it's a great way to coach. Michael, you had a comment?
I was just going to comment that this is another statement of that great quote from Henry Ford, whether you believe you can or you can't, you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Amy, and it's going to look at the quality of your output. And what you see is if you are spending about 50% of your time trying to achieve your goals, that's this very bottom line here. Oops, I can't even make it because the air keeps moving the screen. So that's right there. And I'm going to tell you, 50% is ambitious for a lot of folks because they don't have written goals. They're kind of flying by the seat of their pants. They're running around in the rat race. And they're just really swayed by the whim of others. They're not marching to their own tune, if you will. So 50% I do believe is optimistic. And then the other thing I want to point out is just because you're busy doesn't mean you're really doing the right things to move your vision forward. So with that in mind, could you give yourself a score? What percentage of your time is spent working on your most important goals. You don't have to share it because we're kind of outing each other. Not enough. Yeah. Well, and look what happens if you were able to spend 100% of your time, and I just did a projection based on if you had 10 hours out of a 24-hour day that you were able to put towards all of your goals, and you did that consistently, the payoff is close to 11,000% over barely, I think that was 400% over the course of a year. Now, some of you that I talked with said, man, consistency kind of is hard for me. I feel like I'm going and I'm trying really hard and I'm putting a lot of effort into this business and I'm not really seeing it take off right now. Well, let me share with you. In a study, they looked at folks that had a goal that they set in January. 36% of those people quit after the first month. At 6 months, so this is how many are left. At 6 months, 84% of people quit. Wow, you stopped following your dream because it got hard. Well, it happens to all of us because we're not really seeing the results right now. So I want this slide to show you and give you hope in two ways. One, you're going to have to stick with it for a while. I mean, if you're really putting all your efforts, and that's going to be hard if you're giving 100% and you really don't start to see a payoff until 8 or 9 months, that's hard.
Having a baby.
Yeah. Except with a baby, you don't have a choice. And and you know what? Our businesses are our babies. And sometimes, what is it? We throw them out with the bathwater sometimes. Maybe what you are doing is working. You just need to give a little bit more time. So, even if you can shoot for coming in at maybe 80% of the time, focusing on your goals, you're going to be in around, 3,000%. That's going to be your payoff for your work. So stick with it. Well, and I based off, I did a, what can you expect quantity-wise? I was trying to give a percentage that if you work 10 hours a day and you gave it 100%, and so it's basically, I was looking at the compound effect of doing that day after day. And that's why you really don't see the compound effects here if you're not putting that much energy. So if Omar were here, that's why he would say, come see me, put money in the bank. Because we love compound interest, right? So I was going to have you do something on this page. I thought I was. I would like everybody to think about a stretch income goal. So write that down. You can scribble it down so nobody can see it. But a stretch income goal.
Like you're stretching what you...
Yeah, so
Okay.
when 2016 ends and you look at your, say, your W-2, what do you want it to say? And that's with your current level of production, right? Diana's like, oh, maybe it's not quite high enough.
No.
Okay, now what if you just got to 80% and you took yourself up almost 3,000%? So take that number and double it. Triple it. You get sick to your stomach? You think I'm crazy?
My head hurts.
Does it make your head hurt?
In a good way.
I want you to listen to how that feels when I say you could easily double your income. Easily. I want you to have a visceral response to that and listen to that, because that is your belief about what you're worth and your income. And if it wasn't as positive as you would have liked your reaction to have been, that's a good clue. That's something you want to work on, right? Because you want to have that belief component embracing your actions. So I think that was where I wanted to take you with that. So I'm going to go back and focus on the why a little bit, which is going to give you the momentum, right? And I figure that there's 3 layers. There's like your definition of what momentum is, and I would ask you guys, how do you define, and maybe this is a good chance, especially around this particular goal, the Greeks had 2 different definitions of joy and happiness. there was the intrinsic and extrinsic version. And a lot of us think in terms of that extrinsic version, right? That house that we want to buy, or maybe we call the Cotsworths, and I have a sweet ride that I have in my head. I can just see it. I want you to find this car for me. I can see the wheels. So you're really invested in this car, right? Well, I would ask, what's the intrinsic reasons that you want that car? You know, maybe you grew up quite poor, and maybe having that car would be a nice social status for you. And so maybe you would feel good, you would feel successful, and you know, with that feeling, gosh, where could you go with your business? You'd have a little more confidence. And so with the goal that you've written down, what is the extrinsic component? So what's on the outside? How's it gonna look to others? And how's it gonna feel to you on the inside? And that's important. That's one of the things that we do in coaching, is you want to anchor that feeling, because when you anchor that feeling, that's what fuels that subconscious. So something to think about there. Also, good versus magnificent, and this actually came up in several spots in the room. A lot of us, we're go-getters. We have a lot of goals, but unfortunately, you have so many goals, they start to get diluted, and then you don't really work on any of them. And so when you find that starting to happen, you're going to have to do something really hard. And you're going to have to cut some of your goals. And I mean tough sometimes. I had one of my best friends had some extreme career goals, but it meant that she couldn't be the mom that she wanted to be. She literally had to choose between the two. And so sometimes we're going to be put in that situation. But again, you want that physical response. When you have that, then you're on the right track. If you get a little weepy when you think about it, that's probably a good goal. And if you're outside your comfort zone, great. Great. A lot of people are like, whoa, that's outside my comfort zone, right? Your comfort zones, they're comfortable, and they're there to protect you. But they don't serve you. You will not grow. And if you're not growing you and your solutions and everything that you're bringing to your clients, how are you going to grow your income? If that's a goal of yours. It's a good goal. It's a great goal. I mean, even if it's not for you, it's a chance to give back to your community, right? And then the other thing I'd like to highlight is reframe how you're talking about goals, expectations. A lot of folks use this stuff interchangeably. And for me, it makes me cringe a little, because expectation is I expect it to happen. I'm not going to do any work. I just expect it to happen. It's not going to get a lot done. Whereas a goal, okay, there's some things that I'm going to put in place to make happen. I've identified what I want to do, and I'm going to start taking these steps. Whereas a commitment, all of a sudden now, your integrity is engaged, and it's personal. I dare you not to achieve that. So think about it. If it's going to help you, and maybe like if you've got kids that are young, not young, but maybe about to go off to college, or they're in college, try and figure out like what they're committed to. Are they spread out all over the place, or can you really zero them in and have them focus on what they're committed to? So I would ask you, your goal right now as it's written, is there a way to make it even bigger and make it more magnificent? That's kind of scary because you're going to write it down, and it's kind of like a commitment, right? And I'm going to borrow from Grant Cardone here. Actually, some of you were in the audience when Grant gave his talk here in Denver a couple of months ago. He 10X's everything. Who's heard of Grant Cardone? You've heard of Grant Cardone? Yeah. And what that means is you've got a solution, and maybe it's great for some of your customers. Well, how do you make a solution that's big enough for more people? How do you come up with a solution that works for your community? How do you come up with a solution that works for the United States? Because when you start to build those solutions, again, you build the results as well. So how can you 10X your thinking? Something to think about. And like I say, Joe's writing it down. It's hard to commit to, but if you can do that, and if you can't come up with it now, write 10X underneath your goal. And then maybe you'll come up with something maybe when you're in the shower. That's usually when it happens, right? Right. So layer 2, A lot of you shared with me that you keep vision statements, vision boards. This is a real key thing, obviously, that we do in coaching, and it is your big picture. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on it because most people know what it is, but if you haven't written one, why not, right? Where are you taking your crazy life? Pick a direction. And then you're also going to need to write a midterm vision statement. And what's neat that comes out of that is you start to get the themes that are showing up in your life, and you start to see who, like all the hats that you're wearing. Some of you wear a lot of hats, some more than others. So you want to start to, pick those things out, because if you're going to be a hero, let's call it what it is. You want to be a hero. I want to be a hero to my son. I want to step up and I want to be the best mom ever. I need to know what that looks like, and I need to know what qualities I need to develop or enhance. So who do I need to become? This is that getting bigger. That's increasing your, what you're putting out there in the world. So that might be with the goal you've written. Who do you need to be? What hat are you wearing? Is it mom? Is it business owner? What hat are you wearing? And what quality do you need? Because that's going to be part of the mindset. So I just wanted to do a super quick, I'm going to call it a reverse vision statement, or vision exercise. And so I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. Some of you are writing still, sorry. Close your eyes and don't worry about looking goofy, because we're all going to have our eyes closed. Well, I'm not. Close your eyes. And I want you to picture your life right now. And now I want you to picture that nothing's changed in the next 15 or 20 years. You're working the same career.
Do we have to?
Yes, you do. I don't want you to do that. What is your income? What is your net income? How do your relationships look? Relationships with your family, your friends? How are you spending your time? What do your responsibilities look like? Because they're going to be the same. And the lifestyle that you're leading right now, is this the lifestyle that you want exactly in the next 15, 20 years? Your health, maybe your health is exactly what you want it to be in the next 15 or 20 years. Think about that life. Your life today is going to be exactly what it is in the next 15 years. To kind of turn in and listen, like to your head, your stomach, your chest. Now open your eyes. And I want you to write a positive and a negative. What are you doing right now? What seeds are you sowing that are awesome? And you want to keep doing that. And then you guys know the negatives coming too, where you're going to have to write the things you want to change, right? So that one's kind of rough. It was a really quick visioning. If you do coaching, it's usually a lot longer. But it's kind of neat when you think about, like, ugh, maybe I don't want that to stay the same. It very quickly cues you in on to what's working and what's not working. Finally, the final layer is what I'm going to call your motivation foundation. And I'm just going to go straight on over to our my little graph. Those of you that know me, I like to do my visuals. So, what's interesting about this is when you have a goal, the majority of the population are focused on the short term, which is the pleasure of not doing anything, right? It's I get to sleep in, I can eat whatever I want. It's the pleasure of taking no action towards your goals. And then there's the pain of the action. Are you kidding? I had to get up, it's cold outside, I don't want to go run, it's still kind of dark. You could come up with a lot of reasons of why you don't want to take that action. But this is short-term focused. So let's fix that and let's move it into the long term. So look at the cost of the inaction. So that goal that you've written down, what is it costing you that you haven't taken action on it yet? And if we're honest with ourselves, sometimes it's pretty big stuff. It could be like divorce, right? It could be, staying alienated from somebody that we loved. Did you have a comment? Oh, okay. It could be some pretty serious cost if we're honest with ourselves about what that's, what the result of that's going to be. Now, what is your gain from the action? What do you get? And this is really the beginning of your why. And I say the beginning because whatever you came up with for this answer, I'd like you to ask yourself, well, why? Why is that important? Well, why is that important? And when you get down to the nth degree and you really can't take it any further, that's usually when you start to hit your why, your real why. But the cool part of that is that you now have about maybe 5-10 reasons that you want to achieve it. Brian Tracy says you should have about 40. I'm only asking you to do 5. So that's your real why. And so now look at this. So when you have that person that calls you and says, I've got this emergency and I need you to do this. No, sorry, can't fit that in. Because I have a rock solid foundation. I know what I need to be doing it and I know why I'm doing it. And I'm not willing to compromise that for you. So I'm looking at you. No. She's like, what did I do? So your daily pressures and stress, bring them on. Because that's not going to change, right? Unfortunately. But this is going to give you the bedrock that you need to keep moving forward with your goals. So this would be maybe a little star there next to that goal. You've started this game, right, of the action, but you need to finish that. That's going to require some more work. So commit to yourself to do that work. All right, guys, you knew this was coming. So we talked about kind of the components of the goal. And now we're going to talk about why the goal needs to be written. I'm just laughing because this was hard for me, right? I did not want to write my goals, and I don't know why I was so resistant to it, but I was. And I started doing more and more research. And then what I found is every single person that you've ever heard of that's been crazy successful, every single person, read about them, and they will tell you have to have written goals. They've done those Harvard studies and Yale and Princeton studies, which I'm sure if you've picked up a goaling book, you've read that. And it basically says that the only, top 3% of people keep written goals that they review daily. 3% out of the population. But the Harvard graduates that did that, the 3% made more money than the other 97% of Harvard graduates. If you didn't know, when you graduate from Harvard, you pretty much graduate with a $250,000 a year job. That's a lot of money. And so if I could guarantee you a 5 to 10-fold increase in your income because you took, granted, to really write a good goal and build it all out, really good, it's going to take 45 minutes to an hour. So is 45 minutes of your time worth a 5 to 10-fold income increase? Yeah, I think so too. Your success rates go up for hitting your goals. And then the other thing, this is my neuroscience kind of geeky part, but you activate your reticular activating system. And what that is that's basically your subconscious. You have now, and Heidi could probably speak to that, this is right up your alley. You wake up your subconscious, and your subconscious starts working for you. So if you only had to use the 10% of your conscious brain, it'd be kind of hard to reach your goals. But when you activate that other 90%, wow, you've got a much bigger team, if you will, helping you trying to achieve what you're working towards. And this is why and where you get those aha moments, like in the shower that we just joked about. This is where it comes from. I'll ask Heidi. Is that where it comes from, or do you have anything to add around that? Or
Yeah,
It's one of those things where, you know, when you're not thinking about it, not expecting it, the deepest, darkest places of your brain are still working even though you don't know about it. And then it comes to the surface.
What does that RAS stand for again?
Reticular activating system. That's, you know, I'm actually trying to condense a 4-hour workshop into 45 minutes, so it's like I'm trying to hurry through this part a little bit. But I mean, this is a whole, that's like a whole workshop in and of itself. It's really cool stuff if you start to read about it. So I'm going to move on because we know we should write our goals. Is there anybody here that's like not motivated to write your goals? Because let's talk afterwards. Bedrock of goal setting. Specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and timely. Has everybody heard of a SMART goal?
Yeah.
Okay, I know that we have, but I'm going to give you a little different take on it. Because you can have a goal that is very specific, but if it's not strategically moving you one step closer to your vision, I would argue it's not a very good goal. Secondly, not only do you want to measure, a lot of people want to measure the output. I want to make X amount of dollars, but I'd like to know how you're tracking that performance. I mean, how many prospects are you taking on, or how many prospecting calls are you doing in a day? You know, it's probably better to break it down by day, especially if you're reviewing your goals daily. So how many prospecting calls? You know, how many widgets are you making? What is that costing you? So break that down to not only the output, but also the performance. And you need to ask yourself, is it affordable? Because it will cost you something to work towards your goal. And I had a client who had a weight goal, and she finally decided, God, those last 5 pounds, it's not actually worth it for me. It's killing me, and I'm not willing to pay the cost anymore. So we adjusted the goal so it would work for her. So you might, maybe that's a component of your goal that you need to look at. Maybe that's part of your, why it hasn't quite happened yet. Is it rewarding? So is it going to serve you? And this is basically, is it aligning with your values? And again, talking with John, I was actually very impressed with how you set your goals because you are very clear on your priorities. And when you're clear on that, it is easier to say no on stuff. But that you want to include that. You want the time to be, like I say, present focus, like it's now, it's already happened. My net income is $1.5 million because your brain doesn't know the difference in the future and now. And so your brain, again, you're activating that system to make it happen. Your brain's like, ooh, I'm a little uncomfortable. I need to make sure that this is true. So I'm going to work to make that true. Are your goals leveraging each other? Because if you've got a goal that you want to quit your job and go travel the world, but you want a net income of $1.5 million by the time you're 30, as a coach, I would kind of have to call you out on that and say, I don't see how those two things are going to work together. So you want to try and leverage your goals so they do work with each other. They feed upon each other. And I want to ask you, are your roles addressed? Because probably 90% of the population has some kind of idea about what they want when it comes to their income, and they might have a career goal about what they want to do with their business, or maybe a level that you want to reach within your company, right? That's a goal, it's kind of top of mind. Our companies have us thinking about it. But if you don't also make goals around your health and your spirituality, your personal development, did I already say health? Those other components of your life, what happens when you don't have goals? They go by the wayside. There's no commitments there. So you're not going to work out. Something's not going to happen. And this is where you find people don't have work-life balance because they're only focused on, say, 2 things. And that's what I don't know about you, but I strive for work-life balance. So you have to have goals across all of your life. So this is what I'm calling working smartly. So I would say check, and I've got this on my website in the resources tab if you didn't get a chance to write it down. It's on there. There's an average goal. I have an exercise 4 days a week for the next 3 weeks. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to do cardio exercise 4 days a week for 40 minutes each morning between January 1st and January 21st. If you went to a Franklin Covey seminar, you would get a gold star for this goal. They would pat you on the back and have you come up and be the example. I've written goals like this all my life, and I stick them in a drawer. Snooze. They put me to sleep because it's just not that personal to me. So I started experimenting with new goals, and I've been sharing this with other people, and I see that it works for people. So I wrote, who do I want to be? And then I've got my tactics of how I'm going to do it. So I'm an excellent example for my son, and I model the benefits of fitness for him. I have the energy to enjoy playing, engaging with him, to build fun experiences, and for him to know that he is loved and appreciated. I maintain my health so I'm not a burden to him. And then I have how, basically what I had up here. And then I have, for me, some hurdles. And I had to think this out ahead of time. How am I going to overcome this so I'm consistent? Well, now when I think about sleeping in, now I have to say, well, I'm going to let my son down. I'm not really honoring my son and my commitment to him. And I get out of bed. And some of you have seen my videos on Facebook. I'm working out at 5:30 in the morning, and I'm not very happy about it. But I'm doing it, right? I'm doing it. So I would ask you, and I told you the spoiler alert at the end of all of this was, do what works for you. This may not work for you. You may be this person that if you just did that, that works for you, fantastic. And if you write that down and you do it consistently, yay, right? But if you're that person that maybe, and again, we saw in some of the studies, people tend to poop out on their goals. If you need a way to remind yourself of your why and who you need to become, write it down. So what do you guys think of this goal? It's longer, it's more work, but it's longer. What do you think of something like this versus the shorter goals?
So for me, it really depends on what part of my life. That would
Yeah.
probably work really great in my business, but I know for my health, it's like a given,
Yeah,
and it's been a given forever that
Yeah.
I'll be working out.
Yeah.
And when and where and all that.
Right.
So it's on my schedule, and I don't even think about it. I
that's
just
great.
do.
Yeah.
But I can see doing this on a lot of my other stuff.
Well, and then you bring up a great point. This might be the one, like the goal that you struggle with a little. This might be the place to sort of build that one out. So that's a great point. Yeah. That was my own personal goal that I'd written, by the way, for my son.
Good.
And I get, like, every time I read it, I get a little teary when I think about it. I'm like, oh, that's so important for me to be there with energy for him.
You're not just told your son, you've just told the whole world.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you're
Well,
accountable.
You are wicked smart, because look what we're going to talk about now. Accountability partners. Because you want to put things in there that make it work. So, I talked about checking your goals against that brief framework that doesn't seem to be working. What are the bottlenecks in your business? For a lot of you, it's going to be prospecting. But you need to figure that out so you can put your attention to it. So what kind of support do you have? And then first of all, just look around in this room. I mean, how great just is like the minds that we have just in this space, right? I mean, some of this stuff, Hottie's like, oh yeah, I know that. And Joe has been coaching, what? You coach business owners. Mary Jo, you coach your team. We've got a lot of experience just in this room. So you've probably got mentors sitting next to you that maybe you just hadn't thought about it. But try and find an accountability partner, and maybe not your best friend, because who's going to give you a pass? Your best friend or your mom. They're going to let you off the hook. So pick somebody that's not going to let you off the hook, and be that person for them. Weed your garden. So Tony Robbins just had an event here last week, and he actually, it's funny, I had a couple of friends that went to that, and he said, your environment is stronger than your will. Well, I'm kind of stubborn. I'm like, oh no, it's not. Well, I started thinking about it, and I'm like, well, actually, yeah, it probably is. If you think about it. And so you need to set your environment up so you can't fail. Okay? And what that means is sometimes you have to get rid of people in your life, or at least you have to limit exposure to those people that are trying to wreck your environment because they are trying to knock you off your game. Don't let them.
You mean if they're bringing you down, or?
Bring you down?
Influence?
Or that person that like calls you and they're like, oh, you won't believe my day. And they go on and on about how horrible their life is. And you're like, please, I don't have time for that anymore. This kind of changed the way I think. Well, I've kind of thought about this before, obviously, but you really need to protect your environment. So think about that. Let me go back real fast. Your goals need to be present tense, like they've already happened, and forward focused. Don't be running away from something. And so for a lot of people, I don't want to be fat anymore. I don't want to, I want to lose those last 20 pounds that are hanging on in my butt. No. You want to focus on where you want to be. You want to focus on that net income number. Write it down. Have it on sticky notes throughout your house so you're thinking about it. And your family may at first think you're a little crazy. Let's just call it what it is, but they'll get over it. And fill your tanks. So you're trying to fill your environment with positive things, and that's positive reading. I personally shoot for at least an hour a day, sometimes 2 hours a day, and a gratitude journal. Changes the way I think about things, and it changes my perspective. And it'll also start to open up more opportunities for you. It's interesting how gratitude works. Again, that's a whole other workshop. Roadblocks quickly. You lack the knowledge, you just don't know how to do it. So learn. Or, even better, outsource. A lot of cool websites and stuff you can go to outsource a lot of things that maybe you are not familiar with. And then the mindset. This is huge, okay? And I've got 4 things listed here. I've got quick little tips. Honestly, this could be 6 or 8 months in coaching alone just to come over like some of those mindset roadblocks. But quickly, maybe you're a victim, maybe you're not, but if you're using language of a victim, like I have to do this versus I choose to do this, or I'm going to try, you don't really sound very committed. Yeah, but, so try the words of like and, yes and, I'll figure it out, yeah. I choose to do this. So start using the language of somebody that wants to achieve their goals. The scarcity mentality. Oh, I'll never be able to afford that. I could never do that. Ask yourself how. If you ever hear yourself say never, whoa, flip that around. How can I do that? The perfectionitis disease. I'm going to call it a disease. Oh, you look scared. She's like, guilty. Hey, listen, this used to be me. Listen, if you're really going to start getting stuff done, you have to start shooting for the what I call the 80% rule. If it's 80% there, chances are it's 100% in everybody else's minds. Says the woman who has all these businesses, right? Yeah, it'll save you. And then fear. Oh God, again, this is a big topic. But I would just, if you're really focused on something that's so big that it scares the crap out of you, and that might be what you have written down on your piece of paper, okay? How do you break that down into much, much smaller goals? Break it down, and then focus on the activity, and not necessarily that big outcome. Because sometimes, like if you're up on a high ledge and you're hiking, you do just need to put one foot in front of the other and just focus on what you're doing. So that should help with fear. It's a quick, dirty trick to fix that. If you have trouble getting started, set a timer for 5 minutes and force yourself to work for 5 minutes. I guarantee you're going to get some momentum and you're going to feel like working for like at least 30 minutes to an hour on it. So it's just a little tip. Please stop multitasking. In a nutshell, every time you switch, you're losing about 20% efficiency. So if you're trying to work on 2 projects, you're really only about 80% efficient. If you're working on 3 things kind of at once, you're now down to 60. You're going to make mistakes, you're not going to be focused, and you're not going to be very productive. Google that, and you're going to get a wealth of information. I just wanted to wet your whistle with it. So set yourself up for success. This is really the 3rd big component. If you don't have a system to start reviewing this daily and then choosing those 1 to 2 key activities, this is not a habit you're going to develop. This has been a super workshop and you're going to stick this in your drawer and it was great. Nice meeting you. Unfortunately there's nothing that's going to come of it. But if you can commit to a consistent time and choosing one to keep two key activities on those key goals, things are going to start to happen for you. Schedule it. If it's not in your calendar, it's probably not going to happen. I hated that. Boy, I resisted that as well. I'm like, I'm just kind of a fly by the seat of your pants girl. I don't schedule things. Well, then I didn't do things. So consider that. Don't, again, ask yourself where you're being resistant and be open to it. And then once a week, try and do some really big picture thinking so you don't get caught in the weeds. So this is my last slide. How is 2016 going to be different for you? Because we've got the story, we all got a lot of stories about our past, why things are the way we are, and we can hold on to those. If you hold on to it, you can try and convince everybody why you're right about your story and how bad you had it. So lose the excuses. This year can be different for you. Belief, it's the big thing that I had up there. It's a choice. It's a choice. So write your goals, choose how you're going to write those goals. You know, for Joe, it's going to depend on the situation, right? And you have got to have a system for execution and review. And I would use that brief model to look at that. So, thank you guys for your participation. Let's see if I even brought it up here. I don't think I probably wrote it over there. If you guys are interested, I do a goal setting intensive. And it's where I sit down with you for 4 hours and we go through all of this. And I ask you the tough questions and I make you commit to stuff on paper. But you walk away with an actionable plan. They're written down. You are tuned into what your hot buttons are. And you have a system for execution and review. So if you are somebody that you're on the precipice of something big, you want to take your business to the next level, if you've got a personal goal that's been scaring you a little bit, I want you to consider this workshop. And I've given you guys a one-day only price. And for some of you, you're going to be like, wow, I don't know if I could do that. But I can tell you, if you really start to focus on your goals, I'm telling you, this is a drop in the bucket of what your possibility can be. I mean, if you think about it, where you had a 12,000% return over there. So you turned $1 into $12,000 because you were doing the right thing day after day. Now 10x that to your life. You have that opportunity to live that life of abundance. So thank you guys. You guys were awesome. Thank you for working through this with me on my first workshop. I really appreciate it. And now any questions, thoughts, comments, concerns? No? All right.
Well, comment, I thought you did absolutely great.
Thank you. Felt like I was kind of rushing you guys through it a little bit because, like I say, it's 4 hours worth of content. But I was like, all right, 45 minutes, let's go.
Well, and I want to make a comment. Amy's been working with most of my staff in Parker, and they adore her. And so I just want to vouch for her and what she's been doing for them.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. This is my passion. It's what I do, and I love it. And I've been in a situation where I was doing something that wasn't my passion, but I was making a lot of money doing it, and I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And then I realized it was killing me. And I had to make a real big decision. So I decided to put me and my family first. So now I'm getting to do what I love, and I cannot believe I get paid to do it. I just can't believe it. I'm living my dream. So thank you guys for being a part of it. I really appreciate it. Thank you.